What I'd like to do now is to just go through an example with you. So I have an example of design intent and a simple part that we'll go through together. So what you'll start out with is, of course, starting SOLIDWORKS over here. And I'd recommend having SOLIDWORKS and then your assignment next to each other, or if you want to print out your assignments, however you want to manage it. And as I mentioned before, look at the drawing or drawings of the part or what you're trying to accomplish. Pick up on the subtleties of where origins are and extrusions and things like that. So if I look at this part, for example, I can see the dimensions pull from this corner. So this is the corner that I will use to make my 0, 0 origin. So over in the SOLIDWORKS direction file, it tells me I'm in inch units, so I'll start a new part. I'll verify that I'm in the proper units by going to Options, Documents, Units. It's currently in millimeters, but I want inches. And I look at my drawing, and I see I'm in 2 decimal places for, in this case, all of the dimensions. Or in most cases, I want you to look at a drawing and look at what the majority of the accuracy of the dimensions are. So again, this uses 2, and so I'm in good shape here, 2 decimal places. And that's going to work for me. As I look at this drawing, I want to decide what do I want the top view and the front view to look like. So if I were looking down this direction, and this is a view looking down would be my, let's say, front view, then over here I probably would just have to decide which one is my plane that I might want to start out with. And if you build it in a different plane, you can always rearrange it in drafting, but in this case I'm going to use the front plane to represent what I want to be the front view of. So I'll pick this plane, and I can go to Sketch. For example, there are a couple different ways, but I'm just simply going to pick on Sketch. It orientates the plane, so I'm looking straight down at it. Remember, it gives you this 0, 0, 0 space out in 3D with the 3D world, and that is my 0. And so my first dominant shape looks like a square or a rectangle. It's rectangular because these aren't the same dimensions. So, but it is vertical and horizontal. So if I look at my options for sketch tools, I have the down arrow here, and what I want is a rectangle. So that one was going to work perfect for me. And you see how the dimensions all come from this corner? Well, that indicates that that might be important. So I'll start with this by simply picking that, and that's my coincidence. You see the yellow symbol popping up on the bottom right of my pencil. So I'll pick there and drag it off into space, and you can see it gives you a preview of dimensions. Well, I'm looking for something about 3 inches long and about 2.5 tall. And you don't have to get it that accurate, but just get it kind of approximately so it's close. Click out in space. And remember how it anchors it right here using that coincidence. The yellow highlighted, once I picked it, turned to blue, so now it's been applied. And then of course I have my vertical and horizontal markers, so essentially if I press the escape key, it gets me out of sketch, that entity sketch, and you see I have a black dot and a black line. Well, and then I have blue dots and blue lines, but also this corner, because I can move this corner. I can move this direction. Well, by adding smart dimensions, I can lock down these axes of movement or freedom. So if you look at this one, it's 2.5 inches, so I'll click on here, click out in space, simply type the number you want, it'll update it, and again this one's 3, so I'll click on here, click out in space, and it turned everything black, and then down here it says fully defined. That's what you're shooting for. So it appears as if this first base extrude is complete. Now what I have is a thickness. And note that the dimensions are on the top plane. So I could, when I think I'm done, I go to Features and then Boss Base Extrude, and you'll see it'll twist it, and notice how it's coming out towards me. Looks to me like it needs to be a 1/2 inch. So if it's highlighted already, and if I simply type 0.5, click out in space, it'll update graphically, but it's coming towards me. Well, I mean, I could do that, but what it shows on the drawing is it actually goes down from that plane. So I'm going to click on this, flipping it, flip the direction. Now that thickness matches that thickness direction, so that's what I want. So I'll click the checkbox, and it makes it in 3D space. Wonderful. Next, I need to build a box that looks at a 35-degree angle. So the boss extrude on top of the base extrude is square. Okay, meaning all sides are equal. So this 1-inch dimension applies to this 1-inch length and all the rest of the sides. So this is my flat plane or flat surface. I can pick it and I can add a sketch. Alright, and you notice how it didn't orientate me right away. It didn't move this down and made me look straight down at it. Well, I don't really need it to, but if you wanted to, you can always use the view orientation and go to this. Whatever is plane you've got picked or surface, you can go normal to it, and zoom, there you are. Alright, pick out in space. It's square, but it's not this square with vertical and horizontal. It's something different. A 3-point or center and 3-point, either of these are going to do it for me. So I'll pick, I'll do a point, point, point. Okay, so if I grab it, I can certainly change the dimensions. You know, I don't know if I like this one, because one of the other objectives or design intents is that it would always be centered in the base. So this one, this particular feature here, doesn't give me some features that I want. What I mean by that is, let me show you. Let me down arrow and pick this one from the center to the halfway mark and then up to a corner. Let me show you what that looks like. Now with this particular sketch feature, notice how it gives you a corner to corner and a center point. Well, if that center is centered on this edge and this edge, then this shape would always be centered on top of that shape. This particular square doesn't allow for that. I have to add geometry. So I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to go and use the one I just created. So now I'll grab this and drag it about into the center. Okay, next I need to see here, it says the sides are equal. So I can pick this side and this side. Remember, press and hold the control key, and the menu flips up, a quick menu, and then you can make them horizontal, vertical, collinear, perpendicular, parallel. But what I want is that they're equal in length. Okay. Now I can go to Smart Dimension, and I can dimension one of these. And by the by, as you're dimensioning your sketches, mimic what you're given in the drawing. Meaning, if you notice, I put the dimension for the 2.5 on this side and for the 3 on this side, because when you're double checking yourself at the end, when you're thinking of submitting your project to me, you really want to make sure that that your part matches the drawing. So if you see this 1-inch dimension is on this side, well, I'm going to go ahead and dimension it on here. So I just click it, put it out there, press N1, and there it is. Okay? So I'm going to press Escape. So it's still blue because I can move it around and I can rotate it. So we need to lock down some of the degrees of freedom here. You notice how there's a 35-degree angle here? Let's do another smart dimension from this edge to this edge and type in 35. So, you know, I've removed the rotation, but I can still move it in X and Y. Alright, next I need to lock in, it needs to be centered in the boss. Centered in the boss. Well, one way is to take the center of this shape and center it on this shape. And I can do it by going across, corner to corner. That would work. Okay, so I can simply go not a solid line, but a center line, and I can go from this corner to this corner, for example. Then I can pick the center of this shape, press and hold, and I want the center. Let's see what it can do here. What I want is something in the middle here. Let me see if I can get, what I want is to wake up that center point. Okay, so I grab my center of this sketch, this particular sketch, and as I drag it over that line, it highlights, and of course the little symbol on the bottom left of my pencil means put that point on this line. But if you look up, there's a yellow marker right there, and that means that's the halfway point. So if I let go of it, it's going to anchor it right there. Now notice, it all turned black. The bottom of the screen says fully defined, so that shape, that sketch, is locked into that top plane per dimensions. There's my 35 degrees, there's my 1 inch. The center of this sketch is marked on the center of that line, which is the center of the top, so that ought to work. Next is I need to thicken it by going boss extrude, and it shows a 1 here, and it says the boss height is equal to the length of the sides, meaning if the side length is 1 inch, then the height is 1 inch. So I need to go 1 inch. Okay, I can grab this handle and I can stretch it up and down. You can see the quick reference. You can second let go of it 1 inch or 0.9 or 0.85 or whatever. That's a pretty handy tool for graphics. And you can also type it in. Once it's highlighted, you just simply type what you want and OK it. And there it is. So it appears as if I've got everything. The next step you want to do is just verify that all your dimensions matched your drawing. So over here underneath annotations, right mouse click and click on show feature dimensions, and you'll see that they all pop out. And all I recommend for you is to go item by item. So 2.5, 2.5, 3, 3, 35, 35, 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch height, and a 1/2 inch of thickness. So basically you verify that your drawing matches, your part matches the drawing that you're using. Okay, and of course you'd hit save and save it where you want to have it in your project. Alright, so that's the beginning design intent. We've matched the dimensions. Now you'd want to read through the design intent, make sure you follow each one. So the first one is, am I in inches? Yes. The boss extrude on top of the base extrude is square, so this is a square. Yeah, we got that. The same boss extrude is always centered on the base extrude. Well, how do we verify that? Well, one way is to simply change the dimensions. Let's say we double click on the 3, and let's say that a design change came through, and that now it's 5 inches. I put a 5 in there. Nothing appears to have changed, but I'm going to go up here and rebuild. Oh, see, it went from 3 to 5, and my square went with it. So that worked in that direction. Let's say that the 2.5 went to, let's say, 4 inches. Again, I change the dimension, and then I rebuild it. Okay, and the square followed it, went up in space. So I'm definitely capturing the design intent, where it's always centered on the base extrude. All right, so then the next thing is if my square changes in thickness, it was 1, but let's say we make it 2 now, and I rebuild it, it went 2 inches as a square, but I need to change my height now so that it reflects that. So I could double click on my thickness and make it 2 and rebuild. Okay. So that looks good. So I'm basically going to go and put these back the way they were. So that's 2.5, and this is 3, and this is 1, and this is 1. And I'm going to rebuild. Okay, so a quick look just to make sure all the dimensions are what they were originally. Again, hit save and exit out of SOLIDWORKS and take that folder and submit it to your Scratch drive, and then send an email to your instructor.